Hello everyone and welcome to the Hockey Hub. I'm Brennan and today we're doing a redraft. Now this was recently recommended to me by one of my subscribers and I appreciate the recommendation. So I'm going to be doing the top 10 from the 2015 NHL entry draft. I don't want to get into doing the entire entry draft because I think that would just be an insanely long video, and I think it's just kind of fun to pick the absolute best from the draft. Looking into the entire thing, so many channels have done it, so many blogs and everything, so I'm just going to be doing the top 10, and it really goes to show how strong this 2015 NHL entry draft actually is. This draft is one of the strongest I think we've ever seen in NHL history and has the potential to be the strongest we've ever seen. I think this draft is going to rival the likes of the 2003 draft, which was also one of the best in NHL history. But we're going to start off with number 10. At number 10, going to the Colorado Avalanche, I have Ivan Provorov. Now, Ivan Provorov has cemented himself as one of the best young defensively responsible blue liners in the entire NHL. Playing for the Philadelphia Flyers, Provorov has become a true number one defenseman, and he's effective at all aspects of the game. Provorov is a big hitter, he's got a booming shot, good offensive instincts to go along with a strong defensive game that should only get stronger as he progresses, matures, and gets older. Provorov is one of the brightest young defensemen in the NHL, and he would look good on Colorado's blue line. At number 9, going to the San Jose Sharks, I have another defenseman in Zach Werenski. Now, Zach Werenski in the NHL 2019-2020 season was actually the highest goal-scoring defenseman in the NHL, being the only defenseman to actually hit 20 goals. So Zach Werenski obviously has those offensive instincts, but he's also a reliable defensive presence in his own end, and you can tell when a coach like John Tortorella really relies on him for those defensive zone starts and to kind of play the game all around. Werenski and Jones have become one of the best top pairings in the entire NHL, and Zach Werenski obviously is a big part of that and holds his own as well as Seth Jones does. So I think Werenski being in San Jose would have given them a really good young blue liner to look to. Their blue line is kind of old right now with Burns, Carlson, and Vlasic, so I think Werenski would have been a welcome addition. At number 8, going to the Columbus Blue Jackets, I have Winnipeg Jets forward Kyle Connor. Now, Kyle Connor is quite simply one of the most underrated NHL players in my opinion. I get that his defensive game isn't that strong, but when you look at his offensive numbers, he's one of the best goal scorers in the NHL, and he really doesn't get talked about it enough. Like, he could be in the running for a Rocket Richard one day. You know, he was definitely on pace for 40 goals last year, maybe even 50, so Kyle Connor's really cemented himself as a pure offensive force, and a team like Columbus, who has kind of been starved for offense these past couple of seasons, outside of guys like Artemi Panarin, who have left town, and Pierre-Luc Dubois, who could end up leaving town. I think a player like Kyle Connor would have been a very key addition to that lineup, and I think he would have fit in well in John Tortorella's system. At number 7, going to the Philadelphia Flyers, I have Thomas Chabot. So even though in this redraft they don't get Ivan Provorov, they get what I think to be an upgrade in Thomas Chabot. Now, Thomas Chabot is the piece there in Ottawa as far as the blue line goes. Chabot is one of the brightest young defensemen in the entire NHL, and I think that he definitely has a Norris Trophy in his future. At such a young age of 23, he's already carrying that Ottawa blue line, and he's done so for the past 2 years. I do think that he's Ottawa's next captain, and I think he's arguably already a top 10 defenseman in the NHL. He's the biggest minute-eating defenseman in the NHL as well, so that's a big bonus. No slight to Provorov, but I do think Chabot would be an upgrade. Provorov fits in well with Philly's system, so it's kind of tough to see how Chabot would fit in. Obviously, this being a redraft, we will never likely see this, Chabot being locked up long-term in Ottawa and everything, so I don't see him going to Philly anytime soon. But that being said, for redraft's sake, it's kind of fun to think about, and I think Thomas Chabot would be fantastic in Philly. At number 6, going to the New Jersey Devils, I have Mikko Rantanen. Now, New Jersey kind of ended up getting shafted here, getting Pavel Zacha, who hasn't exactly developed into that 6th overall pick, with the talent level that he has. So he's kind of been a bust in some people's eyes and certainly hasn't lived up to pretty much any expectations set for him. That being said, if New Jersey ended up getting Mikko Rantanen, I think they would have been a lot better off. Mikko Rantanen is a true top-line power winger and is fit in perfectly with Nathan MacKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche. Rantanen is one of the best wingers from this draft, and that's saying a lot when you look at some of the wingers to come out of this draft, like Kyle Connor. But I think Rantanen has such a strong overall game. He's already a leader for that Colorado group and is truly one of the brightest young forwards in the NHL. He plays such a sound game, and as long as he's able to stay healthy, he's a guy that's, easily over point per game and could end up, pushing for 100 points one day. At number 5, going to the Carolina Hurricanes, I have Sebastian Aho. So it's kind of funny how this works out, seeing as how Sebastian Aho obviously is a Carolina Hurricane. He was probably the biggest steal in this draft since they got him early in the second round. And Aho has cemented himself as one of the best all-around centers in the NHL. He's an excellent playmaker, but also has a real knack for goal scoring and is a strong two-way player as well. Aho, I think, is kind of the franchise piece there, even though they've got so many talented players like Andrei Svechnikov, Dougie Hamilton, Jacob Slavin. That being said, Aho is the centerman there, and I think he is the centerpiece. So in this redraft, I still have him going to Carolina, and I think a lot of Carolina fans, pretty happy about having Sebastian Aho there. At number 4, going to the Toronto Maple Leafs, I have Matthew Barzal. Now, Matthew Barzal is cementing himself as one of the best two-way forwards in the entire NHL. One of the more younger two-way forwards, obviously. Not up there with the likes of Sean Couturier and Patrice Bergeron yet, sorry. But, Barzal, he's working on his two-way game, and playing in the Barry Trotz system has helped develop his two-way game. That being said, his offense, has dipped a bit from his rookie season, but he's still one of the best playmakers in the NHL. He's still such a dangerous offensive force, and the fact that he puts up around point per game playing in a Barry Trotz system is very impressive, since obviously the New York Islanders are more centered around goaltending and defense. But Barzal in Toronto would be an offensive dynamo. He'd probably be a 100-point player and probably put up very similar numbers to Mitch Marner. So I think Barzal and Marner, I think Toronto fans would just, they would be just as happy with Barzal, despite Marner being, kind of the hometown kid. And at number 3, going to the Arizona Coyotes, I have the aforementioned Mitch Marner. Now, Mitch Marner is an offensive superstar. He's one of the best playmakers in the entire NHL, arguably the best playmaking winger. And even though he's got that massive contract, there is some that would argue he's worth it, and I think that he's close to being worth it. I think Toronto's got so many massive contracts that it's a problem for them. But that being said, Marner is definitely a top-line winger, and whatever line he goes on, he's a very positive impact to that line, and he's always top 10 in assists in the NHL. He plays with a lot of heart, he plays on the penalty kill, and overall I think he's one of Toronto's best and most reliable forwards. So in Arizona, that would give them the offense that they so desperately craved, and they've been craving for a long time. But unfortunately for Coyotes fans, they ended up taking Dylan Strome, who's already been shipped over to Chicago. Now, I think you guys can tell where I'm going with this. Number 2, I have Jack Eichel. Now, obviously, no changes here. Eichel going to Buffalo. I think even in a redraft with all the amazing talent to come out of this draft, I still think Eichel goes at 2. He's Buffalo's best player. He's their franchise piece. And without Eichel, Buffalo would probably be one of, if not the worst teams in the NHL. I understand that they have good pieces like Rasmus Dahlin, Sam Reinhart, and the new addition of Taylor Hall. But that being said, Eichel has carried this team for the past few years and had an amazing season this past year. Eichel is arguably already a top 10 centerman in the NHL and could really push his way into that top 5 category if he keeps playing like he did. Eichel is simply sensational. He's an effective forward at all ends of the game and is one of the best offensive centers in the entire NHL. But at number 1, I still have Connor McDavid. Now, this is an obvious pick. I don't care. You could do an entire redraft of every single player in the entire NHL, like a fantasy draft style, and chances are you're still taking Connor McDavid. To me, Connor McDavid is the best player in the world. I know some would argue Nathan McKinnon, but I think Connor McDavid's offensive dominance and the way that he can just take over a game is second to none. His offensive talent is off the charts. He's a hard-working player as well, as he's been able to bounce back from some pretty severe injuries. So that being said, I just think Connor McDavid is such a valuable player. He's been Edmonton's MVP for the past couple seasons. I know Leon Draisaitl's been there as well, but Connor McDavid is still the guy there. He's still, the force that drives that ship, and I think he's going to be the best player in the NHL for at least a decade to come. So I think, if Edmonton still had that number 1 overall pick, despite some of the amazing names to come out of this draft, and I didn't even mention some guys like Brock Besser and Ilya Samsonov, Vince Dunn to come out of this draft as well. Just this draft is shaping up to arguably the best of all time, competing with that 2003 draft, and I think that is led by Connor McDavid, who I feel is a generational player. But that does it for today's video. I appreciate you guys watching till the end. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.